I need some traction. You need some traction.
Hey folks, Lloyd Lobo here, co-founder at Boast AI. Today's Traction webinar is brought to you by Boast AI and Launch Academy in partnership with Growth Blazers. Super stoked for this session, but as you're joining, please introduce yourself to everyone, where you're tuning in from, what location, what does your startup do, what you're looking to get out of this session. And if you have any questions, type them in the Q&A tab. We'll take them at the end. Really exciting session. I think it's the first time we've got the one speaker back twice, like the second time in a quarter. TK's last session on building a scalable growth engine was absolutely fire. In a few weeks, it's got over 5,000 views. And so we invited him back to speak on referral marketing. Businesses experience a 70% higher conversion rate when they have referral programs in place. But most companies don't use referral programs. And who better than TK here? He founded ToutApp. It was a pioneer in the $5.5 billion sales engagement space, backed by Andreessen, acquired by Marketo. And then TK was the SVP of strategy at Marketo. And he was part of the executive team that led a 2-year GTM transformation, which led to Marketo's acquisition by Adobe for nearly $5 billion. So TK is going to walk us through 3 principles you absolutely need to crush referral marketing and get an unfair advantage. So without further ado, TK, take it away. We got people all the way from Toronto to Vancouver to Portland to Egypt, New York, everywhere in between. TK, you're the man, you're the celebrity. Take it away.
Well, I will try to live up to that incredible intro. Thank you, Lloyd, again for having me. It's a real honor to be here in the first place, and then also to be asked back. So super excited to be here, everybody. I have one clear promise for you guys. I'm going to teach you today on today's webinar on how you can scale your SaaS business 10 times faster with the unfair advantage of referral marketing. Now, first of all, I really want to be honest. I commend all of you guys for being here, because referral marketing, this is not the sexiest title I've ever given a talk on, right? It's like, oh, referral marketing, how fun could that be? So I want to commend you for being here, for seeing the power in that. And I promise you, by the end of this webinar, if you actually follow the steps I'm talking about, you will be able to grow your SaaS business faster. So I'm super pumped that you're here. So my promise to you is, at the end of our time together, you're going to know exactly how to put referral marketing into play to grow faster. And you're also going to know why it's so powerful. Like I get super pumped about referral marketing, which sounds so boring, but and you'll see, I guarantee by the end of this, you're gonna be like, damn it, referral marketing, that's awesome. So I'm excited for you guys. Now, if this is the first time you're seeing me speak or meeting me, hi, I'm TK. Just a quick background on me. Lloyd already kind of gave the overview, so I'll work quickly with this. I've been in SaaS for the last 15 years. My first company I co-founded with my fraternity brothers in college called HipCal. We sold that to a company called Plaxo. They were both SaaS businesses. And then I worked at Bridgewater, one of the best hedge funds in the world. After Bridgewater, I started another company called ToutApp. We're backed by Andreessen Horowitz. We pioneered the sales engagement space. That's an important part of this story, because I'm going to be telling you about how I discovered referral marketing. We sold ToutApp to Marketo. Marketo was owned by Vista. Vista is one of the best PE firms in the world, specifically on SaaS. We did a 2-year transformation on Marketo, sold it to Adobe. I was SVP of strategy there, and we sold it for $4.75 billion. Now I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to help SaaS founders grow their SaaS business faster based on everything that I've learned. So everything that I'm going to be talking about today, this is not some theory. I'm not an ex-pizza boy that decided to do marketing. This is from me actually being in the trenches as a founder, a venture-backed CEO, a senior executive across multiple SaaS companies. I also operate the fastest growing YouTube channel specifically for B2B SaaS. We publish a video every single week. We have over 150 videos. I think we're starting to hit 200 on topics spanning from product, go-to-market strategy, all of it. And so if you're interested, just go to tkkader.com/YouTube and you can subscribe there. If by the end of this, you're like, I want more of that TK guy, like he's on caffeine. Full disclosure, I did get a steroid shot this morning. My foot was hurting, so I might have a little extra energy for you today. So hopefully that's okay. I also work with founders. So I have over 85 companies that I work with inside of my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. In this program, we have over 85 companies. These are some of the logos. So all of this stuff is just to show you that this is coming from real experience and actually helping startups like you grow. So that's where all this is coming from. So hopefully this will be helpful for you. Now, I want to be fully upfront because I never want to disappoint anybody. So you should leave this webinar. Don't hang out here if you're just a dabbler. If you're like one of those tourists and you just like to consume lots of information, you're not going to put it into play. Don't waste your time. It's not going to be worth it for you. If you don't have a little bit of grit, it won't work. SaaS businesses are amazing, but it's not for the faint of heart. Also, if you get annoyed at the end of it, I'm going to tell you about my coaching offer. You get annoyed by that kind of stuff, I'm going to tell you about my coaching offer real quick, if it's okay with you guys. So don't get annoyed. Lastly, you should settle in and settle down if you're actively building and scaling a SaaS business. If you like frameworks that accelerates your path to results, if you value the principle of measure twice, cut once, that's what I love. That's why I like principles. That's why I like frameworks, because then I can just like do it right and instead of wasting time. If you'd rather focus on building your unique engine rather than reinventing the wheel, meaning you don't need to reinvent how referral marketing works. I'm going to tell you right here how referral marketing works so you can focus on a unique engine. If you like that, then in the right webinar, hit me with a yes in the chat. That way I know you're with me, so that now I can dig into my 3 core principles on how you can implement referral marketing. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. So, all right, I'm getting a bunch of yeses. You guys are awesome. All right. So first, let's talk about go-to-market. Okay. Referral marketing falls into the context of a go-to-market strategy. And you might've seen in my channel or just the way I talk, I obsess over go-to-market because at the end of the day, what makes or breaks a SaaS business is your ability to get distribution. If you have a proper go-to-market strategy, then you have distribution. If you don't have distribution, then it doesn't matter how great your product is, right? So if you agree with that, if GTM is the most important thing that matters in your SaaS business, put GTM in the chat. I'm going to tell you how I discovered referral marketing. All right. So at the end of the day, there's essentially 9 key ways you can drive growth for your SaaS business, okay? You can either go direct or channel, right? You can either do inbound marketing or you can do outbound. If you're doing inbound, you can do SEO, you can do social, you can run ads, or if you're doing outbound, you can do email, you can cold call people, or you can send people a FedEx envelope, right? If you're doing channel, then maybe you go into the marketplaces. A lot of companies that I work with are in the e-commerce SaaS space. So the Shopify marketplace is a big source of pipeline for them. You could also go to companies and have them resell your product, or you can co-market with other companies or co-sell with other companies and generate pipeline that way. And a lot of what we do to scale companies is figure out how to drive that distribution. And in order to do that, the whole reason we're doing all these crazy things is so that we can get to what? We can get to our future customers, right? That's what this is. We're just trying to get to our future customers, and we're going through all these hoops, through all these channels. We're trying to figure out how to really craft that LinkedIn post and get them to download our guide, so that once they download the guide, they actually get into a pipeline or get into our product. All this stuff is so that we can get to our future customers, right? So I learned this when I was at ToutApp. Now, right now, if you look at the sales engagement space, we pioneered the sales engagement space. It's expected to go from about a $1.57 billion space to over a $5 billion space by 2023, right? That's how big just sales engagement is. Now, that's today, all right? Now, we had a problem. We had a problem because at 2011, we were actually building out sales engagement. We were building out ToutApp. We had some competitors. Outreach and SalesLoft didn't even exist yet. So we're building all this stuff out. We had a major problem. What was the major problem? The major problem was sales engagement wasn't a thing. That wasn't a phrase. No sales leader woke up in the morning, man, I really got to get myself a sales engagement tool. Like, it didn't exist, right? Selling over email and outbound was just about to become a thing because we were the ones inventing, saying, hey, you don't have to write that email over and over. You can just send it and we'll keep following up with them. Like, that was a new thing, right? That was 10 years ago. Email sequences, cadences hadn't even been invented yet, right? That didn't exist. It was still templates and tracking and sending the email. It wasn't like, here, send 10 emails. In some cases, it was illegal. So that was the thing too. And when we went to sales leaders and said, hey, we can't say sales engagement, they don't know what it is. So we said, hey, you can do outbound, you can do email automation. They were like, kind of like MailChimp, go talk to marketing. We're like, no, it's not MailChimp. Like, that's not what we do. This is for sales teams. They're like, yeah, email marketing. I'm like, no, it's not email marketing. Kind of, but not really, but it's for salespeople. So it was like a huge problem. And on top of that, it took 7 to 9 touches to convert a lead to an opportunity. And most sales teams didn't do it. So we were like in this space. And I'm trying to master all these different channels, as I'm sure you are now. Those problems are not gone. Everyone needs to do it, except now there are more channels than ever. We added a bunch more, and we were trying to figure out how to do all this. And the thing was, here was the thing. The customers that got what we were doing loved it, right? We had successful customers. But when we went to new people, it was like an uphill battle to try to make them understand that this is this new thing, that they need this, and it's not marketing's job, it's their job, and they can actually generate more pipeline with it. So there was a clear, urgent, and important problem, and a whole new way of selling was emerging, but people didn't understand it. They didn't trust it and just didn't get it. Now, if this is starting to sound familiar, like, by the way, this is what I look like. This is baby TK. I didn't have a beard. I was probably like 40 pounds overweight. If you're feeling like, you're selling something right now that's the equivalent of my problem 10 years ago, where it's not a thing yet, it's not quite a thing, but you're like trying to make it a thing, right? And if you're like, like our customers love it, but if I can get everyone else to understand it, just put a yes in the chat, because I empathize with you. Like, I understand, I've been in your shoes. And this is one of the hardest things, because what you have is awesome because your customers tell you. But when you talk to a new guy, they're like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand. This is everyone. Like, this sucks. And that was my problem. And the problem was there was a bunch of traps. And, I did a webinar, Lloyd had me talking about go-to-market, and we had this slide. It's always good. There's a bunch of traps when we're trying to solve this problem, right? Channels are most attractive. So you want to go to a channel, and so that others can sell for you. So you don't need a marketing team and a sales team, but they won't pay attention to you. You could do SEO. I hear this all the time with founders, like, I'm going to hire a content person. We're going to blog. We're then going to run SEO. And I'm like, cool, talk to you in 12 months when you burn through the runway, and maybe the SEO will work, right? You don't know. And that's a trap. You can spin up ads. Now you can buy a sales engagement tool. You can buy SalesLoft, Outreach, Apollo, HubSpot, Lemlist. There's like 500 of them. You can load it up with a bunch of emails and a bunch of contacts, and you can send it off 1,000 emails later. You get one response, and they said, please don't contact me again. And you're like, I don't know what happened. That's a trap too. How many people have sent so many outbound emails and you're like, I don't know what happened? Well, they didn't trust you. That's the problem. So here's the problem. What you're doing, and this is not wrong, right? It's not wrong. I did this too. And I was like, this sucks. This is horrible, because I'm trying to master each of these channels. I'm trying to understand how to get SEO right. I'm trying to get social going. I'm trying to get email going, just so I can get to my future customers, right? That's all I'm doing this. And it's not working all the time because they just don't trust me. We're too new. We're in an emerging space. We're trying to create a new category, or our competitor has so much mind share. They're like, well, how are you different from these guys? And they just don't trust you. And you're living in these two worlds. On one side, your customers love you. And on the other end, these other people that should love you don't trust you yet. And you're trying to go through all these hoops to try to make it happen just so you can get these future customers. And I was sitting there with ToutApp, and I'm like, this is dumb. This makes no sense. This is inefficient. There's got to be a better way. And so we found a way to break through. What we needed to do was we needed to find a faster way to get this sales leader who loves us to get this sales leader to understand, yo, this is awesome. Like, you got to get ToutApp. That's what we wanted. And we needed to get them to their aha moment faster. We needed to get attention. We needed to build a trust. We needed to compel action faster. And what we needed to do is actually make sure that we got to every single sales team out there, because there was a land grab. If we didn't get them, Yesware would get them. If Yesware didn't get them, HubSpot would get them. We had a competitor that was Yesware, and they had raised like 3 times the amount of money as us. We had a competitor in HubSpot. They tried to buy us. We turned them down. They said, cool, we'll just create a competing product. That sucked. So, and then we had emerging competitors. So we were like, we got to get there fast. We need every single sales team on ToutApp. We need to get there fast. And so we actually got purposeful about our go-to-market strategy. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not selling you a silver bullet here. There is no such thing as a silver bullet. You can't just go home and say, well, I don't need to do inbound, or I don't need to do outbound. I'm just going to go do this referral thing. That's not how this works. You got to get good at all these things, right? This is why I run a full go-to-market program on how to get great at all these things, including referral marketing. But if you do all these things and you add referral marketing to this, which I'm going to tell you about, you can 10x everything you're doing. And it's super simple. This is exactly the diagram that I use to sell everyone on it. And now I teach my founders that I work with. You're doing all of this to get to your future customers. But your best customers already know your future customers. So just get your best customers to introduce you to your future customers. Are you guys getting this? If you're starting to get the power of this, put yes in the chat. And don't worry, if you're like, well, okay, great. I knew that. Like, I know this is simple, right? Like this is simple. And you're like, everyone should be doing. Why is it when you look at a diagram like this, let's just you and me talk right here. Like when you look at a diagram like this, where you're like, well, duh. Listen, the most successful strategies, the most successful growth strategies out there, the most successful ideas out there are painfully obvious, but not everyone does them. How many people have you met? They're like, I thought of Facebook. It's like, well, did you make it? It's like, no. Well, I thought of that idea. Like everyone thinks of this idea, but no one implements it. The only difference here, I want you to remember this, by the time you walk out of this webinar, I want you to remember this. It doesn't matter how simple it looks. It only matters if you implemented it. That's it. And that's what we're going to be digging into. And this is the power of referral marketing. So first I wanted to tell you how I discovered referral marketing. And here's why it's so powerful. Okay. When it comes to driving go-to-market, you have different channels. And I like to do this map. I have this in my coaching programs. There's quick and easy channels, meaning the feedback speed, you get it really quickly. Like when you do it, it either works or it doesn't. And the difficulty is easy, meaning it doesn't take a lot to master. And then there are channels where the feedback speed is slow, where it takes like months to really know if you did it right, but you have to keep doing it until those months come. And the skill is very high. And so if you think about the common go-to-market channels, existing customers referring people to your business is actually quick and easy. You ask them for a referral and they're like, yeah, and I'll do it. Or they're like, no, screw off. Like I'm busy, right? Comparatively, you think about something like inbound, like social, LinkedIn posts, DMs. Well, you'll know pretty quickly whether it's working or not because people will either respond positively or they'll just not respond at all. But there's some difficulty in mastering it. Not that it's impossible, not that you shouldn't do it, but there's more difficulty. You compare that to something like outbound, right? Outbound emailing, cold calling. Well, it takes 7 to 10 touches and you have to do it right. So the difficulty is a little bit harder, but the feedback speed is a lot slower, meaning you got to wait through 10 touches, say over 6 weeks, until you really know if your campaign worked or not. And you also have to kind of know how to craft these things in the right way, and you have to painstakingly personalize them. Otherwise, everyone knows you're using an automation tool now, 10 years later. You could go through platforms and channel partners. Well, there's a whole art on how to make these people work. And they'll tell you yes or no quickly, but most of the time they'll say no unless you really nail the value prop to them. You can run ads. That's quick, right? Mark Zuckerberg will take your money really fast and you'll know really quickly if you made any money out of that, but it's really hard to get right. You lose a lot of money. And so when you think about it that way, it's actually really, really obvious that referral marketing is the quick and easy way to actually drive growth for your company. You can mobilize your existing customers. You can get them to give you referrals. They already trust each other and they'll bring you in. And that's the power of this. And it's super powerful, right? Are you guys starting to see this? So between all of this, I'm like, you know what? This makes a ton of sense. We need to add this to our arsenal. It doesn't mean we don't do the other things. We still have to compete. In order to win, we have to have a proper go-to-market strategy. But as part of that go-to-market strategy, we need to have referrals. Otherwise, I don't know if we're going to make it. I don't know if we can compete against a nearly public company. That's HubSpot. I don't know if we're going to be able to compete against Yesword that has raised 3 times as much. And I don't know if we're going to actually be able to get the land grab. Now, I also learned, and this is something that Lloyd alluded to, the stat is actually customer referrals can increase a company's conversion rate by as much as 270%. 270%, up to like that. I've seen numbers go that high. It goes like that. Why? Because people trust people. Peers trust peers. So your close rates are going to be higher. If one of my customers comes in and say, hey, can you come talk to me? If one of my customers says like, hey, I'll tell you all about TK's thing. And you know that person, you're going to trust them a lot more. So that's the power of this. So now what we want to do is actually dig into this. Now, needless to say, referral marketing worked for us. We raised a Series A, we raised a Series B, we got acquired. Now the space is huge. There's like 500 sales engagement tools. It became a real space. So now you're like, all right, how do we actually do this, right? What's the framework for actually implementing referral marketing? Now that beyond a shred of doubt, you can see the power of referral marketing. So let's dig into it. Let's get super tactical on exactly how we're going to implement this. So you guys are ready on step 1, put step 1 in the chat. We're going to dig into it. This is my essential framework on how to establish a referral marketing program. Now, let me just orient you around this on how I think about this. Every single SaaS business has this flywheel, right? This is a flywheel. I didn't invent this, but this is this is the core flywheel that drives every SaaS business. If you don't follow this, you're not instrumenting your SaaS business the right way. You have your ICP, and then with your ICP and all your activities, you're getting acquisition, you're actually acquiring leads or trials, then you're converting to revenue, then you're actually activating them in the product, then you're retaining them, and then these people are referring them. Everything good? Oh, your video came on. All right. So, and then they're referring them. So this is the part of this where we're really talking about. Now, if you're at a stage where you don't have any successful customers, don't focus on referral marketing, focus on acquisition. But if you've starting to see these going and people are retaining and they're activating, then you're focusing on referrals, right? And there's 3 core things that I'm going to walk you through that you absolutely need to know for this. The first one is that you actually have to establish a trigger-based referral program, a trigger-based referral. We're going to dig into that. Step 2 is you actually don't want to just ask for a referral. You want to ask for feedback first. That's the trick. And we'll talk about that. And then number 3 is you want to actually make it easy to share and refer. Those are the 3 steps on how to actually implement a referral marketing program. So let's dig into step number 1. Here's how you're actually going to do this. This is the common mistake that founders make, that teams make, that we make. The common mistake they made is they're like, let's do referrals. And they do this one thing, and then they never come back to it again, right? What you need to do is actually map out on how you're going to do this in a consistent basis. So there are so many different places you can actually ask for referrals. You can ask for referrals inside your product. You can actually ask for referrals by the salesperson that sold them on the deal. You can ask for referrals from the customer success person. You can ask them on Basically, you can ask them on specific inflection points in the journey. You can ask them after you've completed a successful support ticket, right? And so what the first mistake that people make when they think about establishing a referral program is they don't think about, hey, what are all the places that we should consistently ask for referrals and testimonials? That's the first problem. And so step number 1 you want to write down is what are all the inflection points in the customer journey where you can actually ask for referrals? I'll give you 3 examples right here that are no-brainers. A customer successfully uses a set of features inside your product for the first time and achieves success. This probably sounds familiar to you because this is about when you remember when you use the iPhone apps, there's a certain point where you've used a new app enough times, and then it's like, hey, do you want to write a review? It's following the same principle. And so you want to think about like, hey, when they've actually used certain features and they've gone through that core product loop, can we actually go in and say, hey, do you want to actually tell us how everything's going, right? And we'll talk about that in step 2. The second thing you can do is when a customer completes their first renewal. This could be, if you're on an MRR basis, it could be after the first 2 months or 3 months. If you are on an ARR basis, and look at what the yearly renewals are after they renew, they're the happiest, right? They're like, oh my God, I love you guys. Here's more money. I want to continue to work together. And that's a perfect time to ask for it, but a lot of people don't. And the third one is a customer support ticket is successfully resolved. This is so obvious, right? As soon as someone completes a support ticket, even if it was a terrible experience, everyone feels generally good because you just got help and it solved it. And you're still sticking around because you love it. And so that's a perfect place to ask. Are you guys getting this? So step number 1 is you want to map out in your customer journey all the different places where you can actually drive for testimonials and referrals. That's step number 1. If you start to see the power in this, hit me with a yes in the chat. Now, the big thing that you're really trying to get right, this is the shift you want to make. This is the difference between people that dabble and the people that really put this into play, is there's one thing around being a point in time versus being consistent, right? We talked about this a little bit before. 70% of buyers will gladly give a testimonial when asked. They're often not asked. They'll gladly refer people when they're asked. They're often not asked. The problem is a lot of companies will say, let's do referrals, and they'll send out one email blast and then they won't do it again. But instead, if you think about it in a consistent basis, so like instead of point in time, instead of doing it just once, you say, hey, we're going to keep hitting people up whenever they hit these inflection points. We're going to put in our checklist. We're going to monitor for it, whatever it takes. And we're going to do it consistently. And then your referral program, it becomes an actual program. It's not a point in time thing. It becomes a consistent thing, and it will compound over time. And as it compounds over time, it'll actually help augment everything else you're doing for your go-to-market. Are you guys starting to see the power on this? You see the difference here? This is step number 1. If there's one important thing, you want to think programmatic, not point in time. Consistent, not point in time. You want to make sure you're hooking into these core inflection points and doing it in a consistent basis. So that was step number one. Now we want to get to step number two. Who's ready for step number two? If you're ready for step number two, I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Hit me with a 2 in the chat. By the way, we have a lot of people here. This is pretty crazy. By the way, if you guys are getting value so far, this is like, I want to stay true. Like, I want to make sure this is actionable for you guys. Just put value in the chat. That way I know. If you're not liking it, tell me. I can always do a little dance for you guys. Just kidding. I don't do dances. Step number two. Oh, you guys are awesome. I'm getting a bunch of values. Okay. So step number two is, once you establish a trigger-based referral program, meaning you're looking at those inflection points, you're hitting them up at the right time. Step number two is, you don't want to just go in and just ask for a referral. And there's a trick here. And the trick here is that if you just ask for a referral, people are not going to do it. Why? Because it's a lot of work. It's like, who do I go to? What do I tell them? How do I sell them on this? This sounds like a lot of work. I don't know if I want to put my reputation out there. So this is super important. Don't just go and say, hey, thanks for the renewal. Can you give us a referral? And they're like, yeah, sure. One day I will. It won't work. We tried it. It won't work. What you want to do instead, this is a little counterintuitive, is you want to ask them for feedback. What you want to do is actually ask them for feedback. So what you want to say is like, hey, how's everything going? Right? You want to start by asking feedback first. If it's positive, then ask for details around a perfect testimonial. If it's negative, then offer help. See? The way this works is, the reason step two is not to ask for the referral, but to get a testimonial, is because step three is going to be to share the testimonial. And you'll see how this comes together in a second. But first, in step two, you want to say, hey, how is everything going? Is it going great? Is it not going great? This is super powerful, because in this scenario, you're not just saying like, hey, can you give us a referral? You're saying, hey, are you doing all right? And if they're like, yes, I'm doing great. I love you guys. Right? And then in that case, then you'll say like, okay, cool. But if they're saying like, I don't know, I'm really pissed off, then you can say, okay, how can we help? And either way is good, because you're going to help the customer. Now, when they actually say, hey, I'm doing great, and then you're going to say, hey, since you're doing great, could you tell us like what you love about the product? Like, give us a quick testimonial. Now, you might be asking, what is a quick testimonial, right? Like, what does this look like? How does it work? Great testimonials are honest, real, authentic versus overly positive or vague. So you want to capture some sort of testimonial from them that really gets into why they love your product, the success they've gotten. A great testimonial also mentions a specific impact or ROI or metric to their business. A great testimonial also highlights something unique about your product, right? So instead of saying, I love X, Y, and Z, they're going to say, I generated this much more pipeline and I love it because it makes it so easy. I absolutely love X, Y, and Z. That's an honest testimonial. So you want to kind of work with them to get that perfect testimonial. And why are you doing this? Because everyone, if they're loving your product, they actually want to give back. They really do. And it's super easy to talk about themselves than do anything else. So all you're really doing is capturing why they love you, because they told you they love you. If they said they don't love you, then you're going to help them. Are you guys getting this? So now at the end of this, at this perfect inflection point, which is step one, and step two, you're essentially capturing a testimonial that's like, this is freaking awesome. And you capture that testimonial. Who's with me so far? If you're understanding step two, give me understood. Put understood. If you have a question, put in a question. I want to make sure, this is so important. I want to make sure we don't lose anyone here. So step one, monitor for the inflection point. Step two, at that inflection point, ask them for feedback and capture a testimonial. Are you guys getting this? Okay, I got a bunch of understoods. Okay, cool. So that's step one and two. Now what you have is a happy customer and you have a testimonial. All right. This is super important. Then you get into step three. All right. Who's ready for step three? If you're ready for step three, put three. And if you already know what step three is, you're going to have to listen to me anyway. Okay. So once you have that, then you say, hey, that's a great testimonial. We really appreciate that. Is there someone that you know that would get value from this? You ask them to share it. You ask them to share it with 3 peers. It's like, share your success story with 3 peers. And how many people know the human psychology behind this? It's one thing for me to go write a sales email on your behalf and generate a referral, right? It's a completely other thing when I'm boasting to my peers. I'm like, look at the success I got because of this platform. So all you're doing, telling them to do is you're going to get the trigger. You ask them for the feedback. You're going to collect the testimonial and then ask them to easily share that damn testimonial with 3 people that would love it. Isn't that crazy? And why? Because because they really want to give you a referral, and maybe they do. A lot of people do. They want to help you. They'll gladly do it. But because of vanity, they seem cool to their peers. And by proxy, you seem cool. And by proxy, they now trust you. Isn't that crazy? Now, there's some questions around how do you do this? Well, it's super easy. You use emails. That's the best way to do it. You can start with an NPS score in the product and then drive into an email. You can do the whole thing over email. And we teach all of this in the go-to-market program on how to implement these key things based on systems. That's super easy to do, but that's one of the best way to do it. You don't have to overcomplicate it. You can even text them if you can call them up, because guess what? Think about how much it costs to acquire just one customer for you. And if you can get 3 customers from one testimonial, which you can then pipe through the rest of your go-to-market engine, what's that worth to you? A lot. And this is the power. This is where referral marketers really differ, because the value, the ROI on this is so immense. And the other powerful thing is, in addition to the referrals and the people sharing their own testimonials, you can now feed this into your core go-to-market engine and share it as a success story. And that in itself will elevate all the other things you're doing, because people trust people. You can embed the testimonials. You can choose the right testimonials depending on the sales, depending on each sales deal, if they're similar industry. You can embed the testimonials as part of your content marketing efforts. You can do all of that. But at the same time, you're also driving a referral marketing program. And instead of saying, we're so awesome all the time, you just keep sharing your success stories, the testimonials. And your customers share them because of vanity, and you get referrals and you generate pipeline. Are you guys starting to see this? So my promise to you at the beginning of this webinar was, I'm going to teach you how to establish a referral marketing program. And I'm going to show you how to do it the right way. And I'm going to show you how to do it the strategic way. And so I want to make sure I held on to my promise. How many of you, so was this obvious? This is not obvious, right? This is a very unique strategy on how to do it the right way. So let's review these, right? Step number 1, establish a trigger-based referral program. Make sure it's trigger-based. Step number 2, ask as feedback first, then capture a perfect testimonial. And then step number 3, make it easy to share and refer. And then take those testimonials, share it through your marketing, go-to-market engine, and also get them to share and get referrals. And do it over and over and over and over and over. Are you guys starting to see the power in this? Now, the power in this also is that you're not just going in and saying, hey, give me 3 email addresses, because no one wants to do that. You're saying, here's your testimonial. Can you share it with your peers? And they were like, hell yeah, I want to share it with my peers. I want to show them how awesome I am. So they will share it. And at the end of that testimonial, you can say, hey, by the way, if you want to use our platform, join. If you want to get a discount, ask for an introduction. You can even tell them like, hey, share it with your friends. And if they actually want to talk to us, just introduce us here on this email thread. We'll make it super easy for you. And we'll even give them a discount. We'll tell them we'll give you the insider access. And that way it'll actually drive momentum. Now, some of you may be like, well, how do we automate all this? Well, there are certain ways to automate this, which is beyond the scope of this presentation. We do teach this inside of my program. But one thing I'll tell you is even if you were to work with me, I tell you how to do it in an unscalable way first, then you can automate it. And there's a simple way to automate all this, I promise you. But it's always good to do it in an unscalable way, in a little bit more of a manual way, so that you can actually tweak the right thing. It's the same thing we teach in terms of go-to-market. Look, we've all been there. We've all been there. We've all been there where, and I'm one of the inventors of sales engagements. I can tell you this. We've all been there. We loaded up 1,000 emails, automated the shit out of an outbound campaign, and got nothing in return. Why? Because you can't automate that quickly. You have to start with unscalable, then slowly scale. And we teach you how to do this in the right way. Okay, so that's the spiel. Hopefully you got some value on that. That's why I created that, because distribution is the biggest problem. And if you actually want a framework to follow, if you want to work with me, you can join my program. We have over 85 companies in the program. I just interviewed some of the founders that have been with me for over a year. One grew 330% over the last 12 months. One 5x their MRR. One actually is doing 200% growth quarter over quarter. We've about 4 companies that have raised Series A, 5 to 6 companies that have actually raised a C+ round since working with us, bootstrap companies that have turned profitability. It's an incredible program. It's so much fun to do. And so I invite you to check that out. Okay, now that's the spiel. Now, as promised, I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. I don't have anything planned after this. And so we will actually take as much time as needed to answer any of the questions. I'll take a sip of water. By the way, if you got value on that, put value on the chat. That way I know you're with me. And if you're ready for Q&A and really to dig into any questions that you guys have, whether it's about the program or referral marketing systems, like just put them in and then we're going to start digging through them. Okay, cool.
Awesome. Should I moderate the questions, TK?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. Yeah, so there's a bunch of questions here. How does sharing work if your customers consider others in the market for competitors or as competitors? I mean, if they love you, I guess they should refer.
Yeah. Wait, I want to make sure I understand the question. Are you worried that the customer has their competitors and they don't want them to know, that kind of thing, like secret weapon, or something else?
I don't know, Lara, please clarify that question. Annie asks, would you suggest to offer an incentive if they share it to 3 people? Like, how do you incentivize people to give you more referrals?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Lara, if you can expand on that. I will say this to Lara's question. People make up a bunch of reasons to not do this. They're like, oh, like the competitors, oh, they're going to be shy. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like if you keep running this programmatically, a certain, not 100%, but a certain percentage will share. So it's worth it. And it'll be more than you think. And a lot of these boogeyman reasons that you make up in your head about why they wouldn't do it aren't really true. Like people will do it. So that's number one. Number two, incentives. Now, it kind of depends on your ideal customer. Look, if your ideal customer is, let's just say, a customer success manager at a company, that's who you sell to, or that's your primary user, a Starbucks gift card makes a big difference. If the buyer is a VP of sales of a $100 million SaaS company, right, then a Starbucks gift card is offensive. And so you will kind of have to know how your audience works. My default is to just do it based off of goodwill and vanity. Goodwill is like, hey, thanks for being a great customer. Do you want to like give us a testimonial? That's goodwill. Like it would mean the world to us. And then it's like, hey, do you want to share this? That's vanity. That will get you very far by default. And then you can start to work around with incentives. And this is something we cover inside of the program. We can talk about incentive. Like sometimes the incentive is about what you give them. The other times that person doesn't care about a Starbucks gift card, but if you could tell them like, hey, if a referral comes through you, we'll give them a secret discount. We'll give them like a 10% discount right off the bat on their MRR or ARR, or we'll give them XYZ for free. Then it's like, you're not just sharing and you're like, oh, by the way, I got an in with these guys. They'll hook you up, talk to my guy over there. And that makes a big difference. And so you want to think in terms of vanity, in terms of goodwill, and in terms of when it comes to incentives on what the person getting the referral gets. That's where the real power is.
Definitely. There are a few more questions here on that same topic. Rita asked, why would customers refer you? We've talked about discounting, giving incentives based on the level of the person, maybe even donating to their charity. I know I work with the GTM fund folks, and they donate to charity based on the investors in there, right? Because not everyone wants the Starbucks card. But what are the motivations, intrinsic motivations for people to spend the few extra minutes to share the testimonials with friends? And I think you touched on that with the triggers, but perhaps you can dive in a little more.
Yeah, the key here is, so what stops people from doing it? One is they don't like you. So you remove that. You remove that by actually first asking them, are they happy or not? You also remove that by hitting them at a point where they're likely to be happy, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, well, what stops them from grabbing a referral? But they don't know how to write it. They can't do your sales pitch for you. So what you're doing is you're asking them for a testimonial and then sharing that. So that's super powerful. So we just made that a lot easier. And then it's like, okay, well, if they're willing to hit share or like share it easily, then what's stopping them? Well, sometimes they're like, well, I don't know if I want to put my neck out on the line, or the incentive is not quite there. And that's true for a certain percentage, but at the majority percentage, want to actually show off. Vanity is a real thing. And so they're going to be more likely to share it. And so those are all the things. I think we make it up in our heads that, oh, they're not going to do this because they're busy and this and that. But people like doing this. And if you remember, let me just go to one of the earlier slides here. 70% of buyers will gladly give a testimonial when asked, but they're often not asked. Only 1 out of 5 companies consider adding testimonials into their sales mix, even though it actually increases conversion. So all the stats show when you do this, it is actually very valuable. However, most people don't do it because like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. That seems like I got to put myself out in the line. You can't afford not to do this, is what I say.
Definitely. I love this idea here posted. And I think this, if a startup is not doing this already, I think this is a startup idea. So Chelsea asks, do you encourage proactive referrals? For example, check on LinkedIn connections and ask for referral to a new company from their connections. I mean, like, imagine somebody experienced a wow moment on your product, and then you capture the testimonial, and then right after you get them to share by recommending, hey, share it with these 4 people.
Yeah, so we actually have a company in the program that's stealth right now that automates all of this. And so when you work with us, we give you the training on how to implement all this, and then we hook you into the stealth company, so you have a platform to do this. So it's super powerful.
So the company, when is the company going to go out of stealth?
We'll let you know.
Awesome. So, but that is a good idea, because proactive referrals, if I'm referring, and I refer a lot, if you proactively tell me who you want me to reach out to for, it saves 1 step, right? And I'm more likely to click.
Yeah.
Click.
It's almost unfair. Yeah.
I know. Viplov asks, do specific products work differently under referral marketing, or you've seen it work very similar for all sort of B2B SaaS companies?
We focus on B2B SaaS, and the variances come really on the level of person that's your core audience. The higher you go, the more it's more about goodwill and giving. The lower you go, the more transactional it is. Like, you can put in a gift card. And so that's the vector, like the level of the person, like how much money means to a person versus how much cachet means to a person. And that kind of, there's a sliding scale there. But aside from that, the mechanics are very similar as long as you stay within B2B SaaS. And by the way, like, for everyone listening, for the stealth company that automates all this, like, if you download the 5-point guide, you'll be on the mailing list and you'll get notified about it as soon as they onboard more people. And sometimes we do drops to bring on more people.
Awesome. Now, how do you start? Like, what is unscalable, right? Maybe some unscalable tactics you've seen. Maybe you're early in the product and you don't have the tech to implement to ask people for referrals in product, but maybe they had a great customer service experience with you, or maybe around those few triggers that you mentioned, right? You talked about successfully using a feature inside your product, or complete their first renewal, or a support ticket is resolved, or maybe they have a great onboarding experience and they experience a moment of wow. But let's say if you don't have this automated, what are some unscalable ways you recommend?
Yeah, this goes to my roots of ToutApp. Just have some email templates. That's it. And stop being lazy about it. Like I will tell every founder, like, stop being lazy about it. You're making up a bunch of reasons not to do this, and the rewards are so high. Have some email templates that hit people up at those inflection points. That's a great, and that's what we teach you. We'll teach you, like, literally, like, start with these templates and start to get the momentum going. And as you start to get the momentum, you can tweak some things and A/B test some things. And once you know it's right, then you can get into the programmatic side of things. And that's generally how I would say to start on an unscalable basis.
Yeah, and email, I don't know if people realize, like, we've got 115,000 subscribers, and we do these webinars and we get hundreds of people registered. We do it twice a week, so I can't promote it more than once, right? Like, the Tuesday gets promoted the couple of days before, the Thursday gets promoted on Wednesday. So email is the biggest driver or anything. I don't even rely on social or anything else. Even the speaker bookings, right? I have this automated outbound system where I load in speakers, I give them the value prop. If they don't respond, I follow up automatically, and just make it easy for them to say yes. So email is a great way to do unscalable stuff. Just figure out a way to understand who's experienced those wow moments and reach out to them right away, even if that's manually through customer service. So Avneet asks, what's the best way to show off testimonials when you can't share the name or image due to confidentiality reasons?
I would say that it's not a testimonial unless you can share their name and info. And so you should collect it under the honest, authentic disclosure that, hey, we want to collect a testimonial so we can share your success. If they're not willing to do that, then it's not a testimonial. No one will trust it. It won't be effective.
Definitely. And the last question here is from Victor. Any tips for referral GTM model for long sales cycle enterprise SaaS sales?
Yeah, the playbook is the same. Like, regardless of the length of your sales cycle, referral marketing is not so much a closing activity or like a sales activity. It's more of a pipeline building activity. And so really the question is, who are your successful customers? Now, if you are pre-customer and you have a long sales cycle, you're going to have to wait, right? But once you have successful customers, then it's really like, even if you have long sales cycles, you want to do two things. One, take the successful customers, get referrals. You want to take the successful testimonials and share them with the long sales cycles you're currently running to see if you can accelerate the urgency and build the trust. So the opportunities are multi-pronged around this when you start to do this, but it has nothing to do with your closing cycle. It's a pipeline building activity.
Awesome. Yeah. And even though it's a long sales cycle and maybe you're not opening a door, but just getting testimonials from people like me who've used it will probably help you further the sale, right? Have you seen that?
Yes. There's like two prongs here. One is, there's the referral marketing strategy, right? There's also this element around case studies and testimonials. And when you start to have, this is something that, let me go back to that slide. We were talking about, the byproduct of doing this is now you have all these case studies and testimonials. And so what you can do is, depending on who you're pitching to, the industry you're pitching to, the type of customer you're pitching to, you can go in and share the most relevant testimonial. And that it's like, oh, they're in financial services also. Or, oh God, that's our competitor and they're using this. We got to get on this. Like, there's different ways that it actually elevates the rest of your go-to-market as well, which is why, we have this baked into our go-to-market program, because referral marketing on their own is not a thing. It integrates into everything else you're doing and amplifies it. And that's why it's so powerful.
Definitely. And then the last question, actually, I keep saying last question, but any advice for creating a referral program for channel partners rather than customers? And I feel like it might be similar, but would love to get your thoughts.
I mean, inherently a channel partnership is a referral marketing partnership. Now I'll tell you, like, I ran the alliances organization at Marketo. We had like a $60 million number we had to hit, and we did. It was the first time in company history we hit a $60 million number of source and influence revenue. And that was the first time I was running an alliances org, so I learned a lot real fast. And the biggest problem that alliances and channels have is they'll do a partnership, but they won't do the marketing. And they're like, oh, did you do this big partnership that you announce it, and then nothing, no pipeline, nothing. And what's missing? What's missing is the actual partner marketing. And the biggest way partner marketing really works is the principles of referral marketing. And so what you need to do is make sure you mobilize that partnership and get the referrals flowing through that, and get them to do referrals, and make sure you have a marketing plan as part of your go-to-market strategy.
Awesome. What are the key traits of a successful sort of partner marketing strategy from what you've experienced there at Marketo?
First one is have one. A lot of partner. So, okay, here's number 0. If you are sub 10 million ARR in revenue, don't waste time with partners, because no one trusts you yet in the market. So don't waste time on that. Do integrations, get into the marketplace, drive reviews. That's your partner strategy. Don't try to do anything more. Everyone wants to get the silver bullet where they can sell through a channel. There are exceptions, but 99% of the time, nothing's going to happen. If you are past 10 million ARR, now you have a mini brand. Now you have successful customers. So start to do those partnership conversations. Now, if you're starting to do those partnership conversations, how do you actually mobilize that? Well, number 1, actually have a dedicated resource for partner marketing. Otherwise, it ends up being, Marketo, we had a 110% marketing team, but partner marketing was always an afterthought. So nothing got done. And then we literally hired a marketing manager just for partner marketing, and he got resources around him and everything took off. Partners were calling, my cell phone was ringing up. They're like, thank you so much. This is incredible. We've never seen this before. And it was because we actually mobilized the dollars on, there was plenty of dollars to spend, but there was no one to own it because it was a part-time hobby for everyone else. And it's really hard to think about direct marketing and also leverage the partners. It's always an afterthought. So have a dedicated resource for it. If you can't afford a dedicated resource for it, that means you're too early for it. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is establish some sort of co-marketing dollars where you're like, hey, if you put in $1 partner, we'll match that for $1, and then we'll go do something. And that incentivizes people. There's more skin in the game for them to say, yeah, we'll do partner. It's typically called an MDF, market development fund in the industry. What that'll do is actually incentivize people to say, okay, cool, we can get more bang for the buck. Your skin is in the game, so let's go do it. And that will bring it home on actually getting the marketing manager to do the things, but they have actual resources, and then double their resources because of the matching fund to go do all the activities that they need to be doing.
And at Marketo, when this was taking off, what did the co-marketing look like? What are some activities that like get partners pumped up to take action and drive traffic to you, right? And I agree with this. Actually, this depending on the company, some companies that thrive entirely on partner marketing, but the one valuable piece of advice you gave and probably saved a lot of people heartache is if you're not in that, if you don't have a mini brand close to 10 million ARR, nobody cares, right? My previous company was built on top of Salesforce. Salesforce was an investor and they never did anything, right? In partner marketing, it was always like hit these standards. So the best way is get an app in their marketplace, get reviews, build social proof so people want you. So that's great advice. But then once you're at that point and you have this partner marketing person, what are a few activities that you can do deliberately to drive traffic?
So it's not terribly different than direct marketing. You have to kind of understand what are the incentives of the partner. At the end of the day, like depending on if it's so there's two types of partners essentially. There's service partners and there's technology partners. Okay. Service partners, they really will only get out of bed if whatever they do with you involves service dollars. Meaning if your solution is complicated enough to implement, so they have to sell services and consulting and professional service, like then they'll get out of bed. If it doesn't, if it's pretty easy to install, then don't waste time with service partners because they're not going to make any money off of you. So why bother? So they're not going to really juice this. With technology partners, it's ultimately about either filling some sort of gap they have if they're losing deals because they don't have a certain capability, but you do, and your integration helps them sell more deals, then they'll move mountains for you. If that's not the case, then you're not really going to get much. So you always have to look at it from what do they need? No one wakes up in the morning and says, well, I really want to help this other company with their go-to-market. Like no one does that. But if they can sell more of their own stuff with you, then it'll be very effective. So that's the first thing you got to understand. Once you understand that, then it's a question of, well, what are the things that will mobilize that so I sell more and they sell more? Well, one is they can now go to, so let's just take the technology example. They can now go to their customer base or their pipeline and do a joint webinar about this joint integration that gives them this capability that otherwise would not have. And now all of a sudden they can compete better in the market and they can tell the story. They'll do a lot of webinars for that. They'll do a lot of events for that. They'll do anything for that. Whenever they're doing a marketing activity, they want to tell the story because it strengthens their story. So you always want to think along those lines. Same thing with service partners. Service partners, if they can see how, if I help you sell your software, I'm going to earn $10 of service dollars. Great. I will do anything and everything possible to make sure I keep telling that story. I will go find people I'm prospecting into to tell them that story so that they buy your platform and I get a bunch of service dollars. If you don't have these two equations clear, you're basically going to be wasting a ton of time. But once you are crystal clear on those two equations, then the marketing activities, whether you do a webinar or whether you do an event or whether you go get a booth at their conference at half the price, or that you join their partner program where you get their webinar person, whatever it may be, you'll actually be able to rise to the top in that. The third thing I'll tell you is, I ran the partner program and I saw who was successful and who wasn't. right? And I had the same thing. Like I would have companies that are sub-million ARR, and they're like, if only you could just pitch us to your 450 million ARR customer base. I'm like, yeah, I know, but we're not going to. We don't trust you yet. We don't need you yet. But there are other companies who are like, we are getting killed against Pardot or Eloqua because of this thing. But if we talk about it, then we'll win every deal. So we'll bring them in, even if they're small. So we made those. So, but I'll tell you this one thing. This is the last thing I'll tell you. Don't expect the partner to mobilize things for you. You're like, when you engage with them, when you forge the partnership, it's kind of like they're giving you key card access to their office. And now your job is to use that key card access to go in and take shit over. And the partners that did that, they had really strong people that showed up and they're like, all right, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to make it easy for you. And here's everything. Here's the material. You just need to put your logo on and send out this email. We're going to make it happen. And they got the best results. And we were okay with that. We were okay with that because we were pre-vetted. We know we will make more money when they make more money. So, and if they're going to run it versus us having to figure all this stuff out, we'll just say yes. Because what we have is the keys to the kingdom, our customer base. So we're happy to send that email out. And so you want to make sure you get the key card access, and then you want to go run shit. And that's going to get you the most success.
Definitely. So having templates, being proactive in scheduling things, having templates, just making it easy to hit click and go, so the partner doesn't have work on them.
Yeah. So if you notice, the three things I mentioned all build on each other. Number 0 is literally like, is there an economic incentive where if we sell more, they make more money? Like, align that. The second one is, do you have a dedicated resource to mobilize that partnership and that marketing? And the third one is, take that resource, use that economic incentive, and go take shit over and like use as much of their resources as possible. You do those three things, you can also deliver on record partner numbers.
Definitely. No, this is fantastic advice. TK, thanks for coming back in a short period of time to deliver another very insightful session. Hopefully we'll do a session in Austin live, Unstoppable Traction. And,
I love it. Unstoppable Traction. And like we can put a little slash in between, Unstoppable / Traction. And
we should meet up in Austin in mid-January or February. Awesome, man. Take care. Thanks for sharing all your insights. Love and peace, brother.
Take care, man. Thanks for having me. Thank you, everybody, for joining.